put aside the Adivasi's sense of inequality, even abandonment by the state, and it was clear that few of them wanted their traditional hunter-gatherer life. An existence without an alphabet, schools, electricity, roads, in which many babies and mothers died in childbirth, and the village shaman treated every affliction, from cerebral malaria to cholera. The Naxalites offered them no better alternative, only a hazy notion of protection and an archaic ideology long abandoned by the rest of the world. As I looked at the green landscape in the warm early morning, it seemed impossible to imagine what harm lay ahead. Neither a whisper of man nor a hint of malice came from those crowded trees. The jostle of mawa leaves, tamarind, and kusum. Instead, the air vibrated gently with the thrum of insects and the hoots of unseen birds. Then, from among the low tribal huts on one side of the road's end, the sound of a woman's weeping rent the stillness. Her sobbing lasted barely a minute, yet it carried an inconsolable grief. The Adivasis I encountered were supremely self-possessed and enduring, and it was rare to see them express any such extreme emotion. The village man brought her over to me. Sarita was her name. Her face was waxen with sadness and shock, but she was proud and stared me directly in the face when she spoke. She was just 19, an Adivasi girl from the Maurya tribe. She wore a light tribal dress and carried herself with the same straight-backed, sure-footed poise I always saw in the Adivasi villages. She had arrived in Kutru the previous night along with 30 others, most of them extended family members. They live in Karp, a village deeper in the jungle, but had fled their home as fugitives from a Maoist ultimatum. The Naxalites had emerged from the jungle and occupied their village the previous week. Sarita told me, cutting it off from the outside world. She said there were no more than 100 fighters in all, men and women dressed in olive fatigues and heavily armed, and that they were commanded by a large woman known as Renzita. The Naxalites armed cadres usually appeared in the area in April, emerging from Abusmar and traveling from village to village along the jungle fringes, extracting a levy from the tribes on the sale of their tendu leaves. On this occasion, the Maoists had no more than levy on their minds. Sarita's relatives had made a fateful mistake. An educated family 3 months earlier, they had collected signatures from locals as part of a petition to the state authorities requesting that a police station be established in Karp. The attendant benefits of a police presence in the village included a road. The militants seized Sarita's father, her brother, and a cousin from their home. Next, Ranzita and her Kadras summoned the village to witness a Jan Adalat. Today's incarnation of the infamous People's Court is established by Mao in the 1950s as a way for Chinese peasants to put landlords on trial. First, Ranzida read out the charges against Sarita's family. Next, three alleged government collaborators, bound and blindfolded, were beaten with clubs and fists before the silent crowd. Then it suddenly finished, Sarita said. Ranzida addressed us one last time. She told the village that anyone with relatives in the police or local government had 1 week to leave their homes or be killed. Then she walked up to me and said I would find my father and brother sleeping on the path home. The next ladies made us chant Maoist slogans a few times and then they disappeared. Sarita did find her father and brother on the trail home. They lay beside her abducted cousin. The man's hands were tied and they had been beaten to death with the flat edge of axe heads. Her brother's eyelids had been cut away with a knife. I left her standing at a point near where the jungle fell upon the edge of the village. She had stopped crying by then and looked about with the cool, practical regard of a newly anointed refugee assessing the rules of necessity, weaving the prospects of life on each side of the road's end. Adivasi bride Rani Kumari, her head daubed with turmeric paste for purification and good fortune, is 15 years old. In Jharkhand, nearly 2/3 of girls are married by age 18.